Hello, everyone, and happy Monday. My name is Matt Christina. For my article presentation, I would like to focus on what we have been learning in lecture for about the last 2 weeks, specifically the Hawthorne studies and human relations theory. The Hawthorne studies took place in the Chicago suburb of Hawthorne, where this is where the study received its name. The studies were centered around Western Electric's factory workers. They took place for a little under a decade from 1924 to 1932. The head researcher and supervisor was Elton Mayo, an Australian-born sociologist. The first part of the research focused primarily on the physical conditions affecting worker productivity. A small subset of workers was separated into two groups. Mayo and his research team conducted their first initial tests using factory lighting. One group of workers' factory lighting conditions was increased, while the other group received no such change in light. This group became known as the control group. Mayo noticed that productivity increased with the group who had a more illuminated workplace, while the other group's productivity remained unchanged. Mayo began to test other working condition variables as well, such as breaks, working hours, and even decreasing the light instead of increasing it. In all of the scenarios, when a change to the working environment was made, productivity increased. Mayo and his research team theorized that there was only one other common variable with each change in the working conditions. It was not the change itself, but that someone expressed a genuine concern for the working conditions and took the time to consider the workers' opinions before a change was made. Another important note of the Mayo findings is human association with others in small groups. They realized a working standard would be created naturally within the group. The standard of what is productive for a day's work was drastically different than what management and efficiency experts of the time predicted. Mayo's work is greatly linked to human relations. The reason for this is because it was highly publicized and criticized work of its time. Many criticize its disregard for non-academic theory. Our PowerPoint and text also note that some critics of the time thought it was a gambit by the Harvard Business School to establish itself in the academic world as legitimate. However, this research is the foundation of the human relations movement. Moving on into the present day, I would like to discuss a summary of my article selection from the Harvard Business Review. The article was written by Peter Drucker and is entitled "They're Not Employees, They're People." The article dives into temporary placement agencies and external HR firms. Nowadays, the traditional worker has been replaced by temporary staff. Even the more formal aspects of management, such as employee relations and human resources, has been outsourced. This trend in the job market is far from stagnant and is increasing daily. Adecco, a private employment agency headed in Switzerland, places about 700,000 temporary employees a day. Roughly one-third of these 700,000 temporary workers are from the United States. This company is only one example presented in the article. In the United States alone, we have numerous companies that provide the same solutions to the traditional hiring process. So when I think of temp agencies, I think of clerical positions such as fill-in secretaries, custodial jobs, uh, hotel cleaning staff. However, over time, temp agencies have evolved into something drastically different. Temp agencies nowadays place blue-collar workers as well as CEOs, manufacturing managers, and even healthcare professionals. The article specifically notes about manufacturing managers. So a company builds a factory and they hire a temporary manufacturing manager to get the operations off the ground. Once the operations are fully operational, the manufacturing manager leaves and moves on to the next temporary position. The reason for the influx in demand for these temporary agencies and temporary job positions, the article states, is because of the red tape involved in the hiring process, compliance with various laws, such as equal opportunity employment, tax paperwork, and government required paperwork, can be a drastic burden to management. In the mid 1990s, this type of compliance for companies having under 500 employees resulted in a cost of nearly 5,000 US dollars per employee. And since then, this number has risen exponentially. Tasks such as these become routine in nature for the traditional employee hiring process. There's no way around it. It is no wonder that managers are shying away from normal employees towards temporary workers. This leads me to my first discussion question. Do you think it is a wise decision, primarily for companies having under 500 employees, to hire temporary employees to avoid compliance costs, or do you think this change will lead to an unexpected productivity cost? So, what are professional employment organizations, or PEOs? I was extremely interested with this article because I never really heard of PEOs before. I knew many companies outsource their administrative tasks, but I was surprised to find that the demand for these organizations is extremely high. They first started in the 1980s doing small tasks for organizations such as bookkeeping, but have taken on new administrative roles like never before. These organizations are different from temp agencies. They function as an outsourced branch of a company, performing functions such as human resources and payroll. These companies allow managers working in a particular industry to focus on the industry itself and not on the paperwork. They free up nearly one-fourth of the manager's time doing employee-related paperwork. Managers can focus greater amounts of time and effort on the people who work with them. They have more time to discuss changes in the organization. As Mayo stated in his findings, workers respond positively when others are concerned about their working conditions and their problems on the job. Managers could have the potential to give up to 25% more of their time to performing these duties and teaching people additional skills that can add to the efficiency of a company while saving the business significant costs. Specifically in knowledge-based businesses such as engineering, accounting, and computer software managers, they can stick to what they know best. They can formulate a small group and mentor their team of aspiring professionals, forming good social environments for productivity to sprout. Basically, transforming the job, a job, and the workplace from people and being labeled as employees to them being labeled as people. And managers can think of it as more as them developing the whole entire person, not just being concerned with managing their employee. And they can also leave the large, cumbersome administrative roles to the professionals in that field, specifically professional employment organizations. I think, of course, businesses have to realize and take full advantage of managers' time, possibly foster some training initiatives to help with human relationship principles. But if used correctly, I think PEOs can help in the process. This leads me to my last discussion question. Do you think that professional employment organizations can free up time for management to work more so on employee and social needs, such as good on the job relationships and manager employee relationships? Thank you for your time, and please let me know your thoughts and comments, and if you have any questions in the discussion section. Thank you.